Why Everything Changes. Insights from Buddhism Answers Podcast. At some point in life, each of us has sighed and silently wondered, why does everything change so quickly? A loved one, once full of vitality, now has silver hair. A relationship that once felt so close now grows distant. A stable job suddenly becomes uncertain. Even our own hearts, our thoughts, desires, and values shift with time. Change seems to come without warning. It arrives like a gentle breeze, yet stirs deep unease within us. Buddhism does not avoid or deny change. On the contrary, the Buddha taught, impermanence is the nature of all conditioned things. This is not a pessimistic view, it is a profound truth and perhaps the key to peace. In today's episode of the Answers Podcast, we will explore the Buddhist teachings to understand, why does everything change? And more importantly, how can we remain at peace in a world that is constantly in motion? In Buddhism, impermanence, Pali, anicca, Sanskrit, anitya, is one of the three marks of existence, the core truths that define all things. This means that everything conditioned, everything that arises due to causes and conditions, is subject to change and decay. From a breeze in the air, a falling leaf, to our very bodies, thoughts, and emotions, nothing remains the same. The Buddha taught, all conditioned things are impermanent. Their nature is to arise and to cease. The Great Discourse on Final Nirvana. Examples from daily life. A lotus flower, fresh in the morning, begins to wilt by evening. A moment of joy can turn into sadness without notice. A child grows each day. We cannot hold on to their baby face forever. Profound meaning. Understanding impermanence helps us let go of our attachments. It teaches us to live deeply and mindfully in the present, knowing that every moment is fleeting and precious. In the Buddhist teachings, dependent origination, Pali, Paticca Samuppada, reveals a profound truth. When this is, that is. When this ceases, that ceases. Nothing exists independently. Everything arises, exists, and fades away due to a network of conditions. Examples. A flower blooms only when there is soil, water, sunlight, and favorable weather. A spoken word arises from thoughts, emotions, surroundings, and the listener's presence. Even what we call a self is just a temporary gathering of the five aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness. When the conditions change, the result changes. Thus, instead of resisting change, the wise observe it and respond according to conditions. The Buddha said, who sees dependent origination sees the Dharma, and who sees the Dharma sees the Tathagata. Majjhima Nikaya, the Great Discourse on Causation. Practical application. When we understand that all things arise from conditions, we stop blaming the past or fearing the future. We learn to sow wholesome causes, remain calm in the present, and accept change as a natural part of life. This insight leads to a life of wisdom, compassion, and freedom from rigidity. Human beings naturally tend to cling to a self, an identity built from the body, possessions, emotions, beliefs, and experiences. We believe that this self is fixed and permanent, and that what belongs to me must not change. However, as discussed earlier, all things are impermanent. All phenomena arise from conditions. When we cling to the illusion of a fixed self, we generate expectations, and these expectations are the seeds of suffering. We wish for things to stay the same, but reality is one of continuous transformation. The Buddha taught, all phenomena are non-self. Therefore, one should not cling. Anatalakkhana Sutta, the discourse on the characteristic of non-self. Examples from life. When a loved one passes away, the pain is often intensified because we resist impermanence. When insulted or rejected, we feel anger because the ego feels threatened. When circumstances change, we feel lost because we were clinging to a former sense of stability. Deeper meaning. Recognizing that the self is just a temporary aggregation, not a fixed entity, allows us to loosen the grip of ego. As ego clinging fades, so does much of our subtle inner suffering. This marks the beginning of true wisdom, the basis for compassion, freedom, and equanimity. Mindfulness, Pali, Sati, is the capacity to remain fully present, clearly aware of what is happening in each moment, without judgment, without grasping, without rejection. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha teaches mindfulness through contemplation of the body, feelings, the mind, and phenomena. Mindfulness does not stop impermanence, but it allows us to see impermanence clearly, moment by moment, and thus live in harmony with it, rather than suffer by resisting it. Simple examples of mindfulness in daily life. When drinking tea, being fully aware. This is sweetness. This is warmth. This is a quiet moment. When sadness arises, not escaping from it, but gently noting, this is sadness. It will pass. When a loved one changes, not blaming them, but realizing, everyone changes as I too have changed. Benefits of mindfulness. It frees us from living in memories or anxieties about the future. It creates an inner space of calm, untouched by the chaos around. It is the gateway to inner stillness, wisdom, and genuine compassion. The Buddha said, "This is the direct path for the purification of beings, for overcoming sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of pain and grief, and for the realization of nirvana." Satipatthana Sutta, Discourse on the Foundations of Mindfulness. From the principles of impermanence, dependent origination, ego clinging, and the practice of mindfulness, one truth becomes clear. Change is not a misfortune. It is the natural way of life. Buddhism does not ask us to escape change, but to walk alongside it with wisdom and compassion. When we understand that suffering arises from resisting impermanence, we learn to let go, not to abandon the world, but to live peacefully within it. A reflection for you. Ask yourself, what in my life is changing that I'm unwilling to accept? What am I clinging to that brings me stress? Can I practice mindfulness in something small today? Take a moment of quiet to feel these questions within you. If today's reflections brought you a sense of peace or insight, please follow the Buddhism Answers podcast and share it with someone who might need a light in times of change. As the Buddha said, the mind can be your best friend or your worst enemy. Train it well and it will lead you to peace.